The Ithaca College Bombers began their Liberty League play on Saturday when they faced off against the high-flying St. Lawrence University Saints. We have highlights from the game, and we're going to have Coach Dan Swanstrom in studio to break down all of Saturday's action. Alyssa Spady has your Liberty League roundup, and as always, Fourth and Goal has a lot to debate. This is the Gridiron Report, and it starts right now. Welcome into the Gridiron Report. I'm your host, Matthias Wallman. Thanks for tuning in for everything Bombers football. Last week, they were the 11th ranked Bombers. Now they're the 10th ranked Bombers. As always, Coach Dan Swanstrom joins the show. Coach, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, glad to be here.
So, Coach, if I was a betting man, I'd say you don't let national rankings distract you guys. But it must feel good to finally be getting the recognition you guys deserve. What's your reaction to hearing these rankings week in and week out?
Do not care.
Do not care? Not at all?
Not at 1%. You couldn't rank that in the top 10 million things I care about.
So how do you find out about the rankings through the show, or?
Do not care. I couldn't care less.
Okay, so now we're moving from non-conference games to conference games. Of course, this was the first one. You describe them as kind of preseason games. Obviously, they matter, but why do you describe them that way?
The games before?
Yeah.
I mean, because the automatic qualification to the NCAA playoffs is go through our conference. So we have to win our conference to get into the playoffs. So if you lose all three of those first three games, it doesn't affect the conference play.
What do you use those non-conference games for? Maybe try out different plays?
Maybe not so much just trying. I mean, we run our systems and we run our offense, we run our defense, but we maybe try some things a little different. Whatever that may be, but that's up to the coaching staff when we make those decisions, and we try to find out as much as we can about our team and the players, and it's an ever-growing process that we're still under right now too.
So before the St. Lawrence game, what was the scouting report on them? What was the point of emphasis?
Yeah, I mean, offensively, the quarterback was throwing for about 340 a game. Defensively, they had a lot of sacks, and they were a high-pressure team, so we knew we needed to control and target correctly with the offensive line. And I thought if we could do those two things, we control the pass game on their end and we can control kind of their pressure system, that we'd be in a decent position to win the game.
All right, we'll see if it ended up working out for the Bombers. We're going to have the full highlights for the game. Let's see exactly how things shaped out on Saturday. So the Bombers started off good in this one. This is Joe Germanero going to Will Gladney on the screen and right over his defender. No question about it. Gladney hopping over and getting in. That was one of his 3 touchdowns in the first half. Here is Tyler Gross shot, and Nick Garone just simply fools him. Coach, what did he do on that play?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great design by our defensive coordinator and great execution by Nick, selling the blitz and then falling into the low hole.
And here we see Kendall Anderson making it all the way to the 1-yard line. He takes a nasty lick at the end, but it doesn't matter because here's Joe Germanero, second rushing touchdown of the season for him. He sneaks it in. Bombers were in control on offense and on defense. More of the same. Here again, the give to Isaiah DeHady. Just get out of the way when he's got the ball. The bulldozer running right over defenders. That put him in a 3-way tie for 10th all-time for rushing touchdowns. And like we talked about, the interceptions. There is Kevin Schock making a great break on the ball, and look at the strength to rip it away from Andrew Murphy. We're going to be talking to him later on the show. We're going to ask him about the interception. That's his first career one in a Bombers uniform. And then again, the offense. This might have been my favorite Gladney touchdown. He's just throwing it up. Maybe not the highest ball, but he just snags it right out of the air. In the industry, we like to call that getting mossed. That's exactly what Will Gladney did there. Again, 3 touchdowns in the first half, and then Germanero finding his tight end, first career touchdown for him as well. Austin Hedgeland making it into the end zone. It was all Bombers from there. They ended it with a Michael Rumes pick 6. The half ended 45-6. The final score was 59-20. Coach, you had a huge lead going into the second half. You had the same thing against St. John Fisher. Yeah. What were you guys saying on the sidelines to avoid what happened the week before?
Yeah, I mean, we were in the same opportunity we had last week, and it was great. They kicked off to us in the same exact situation that we had before. Last week, we didn't capitalize on that first drive, far from it. And then on this first drive, we went right down and scored in under maybe 90 seconds. I don't know. It was pretty quick, but that's what really good football teams do. When they come out in the third quarter and you finish the half with the score, obviously the defensive score, and then they kick it back off to us, and then we immediately go and score. I mean, it just takes all the sail out of your, I lost my metaphor, but you get the point,
So we were talking about the defense, the interceptions. You guys dominated the turnover battle. You were +3 at the half. You ended up being +2. What did the defense do? Because you talked about Tyler Groshot, their quarterback, how he airs it out, and he was throwing for over 300 yards per game.
Yeah, that was just really well executed on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of those interceptions were great design and then great execution by our players to get that done. David Nieto on a flat, stepping up in the flat, and obviously the Garone one was a good one, and then Kevin down the middle of the field, and then Room is playing kind of the low hole again off the pressure. It was really great design, and one of the things our defense likes to do is try to confuse the decision maker, and he won some battles, but at the end of the day, I felt like he was a little confused at times and not sure what to do with the ball, and that slight hesitation led to 4 interceptions in a massive second quarter.
So the offense played well the entire game, and I mean, you were clicking on all cylinders. I'm talking 10 of 14 on third down, 8 of 8 in the red zone. What did you guys do well in that game, and what are you taking into next week against Buffalo State?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of, sometimes you just have those days, for St. Lawrence, and I just feel like, with the turnovers and interceptions, and then just kind of how everything got going, they come out, they score right away, and the energy is high and the excitement's high. We immediately block the extra point, and then we return the kickoff out to the 45, and then we're in the end zone within 5 plays, and we're off and rolling, so, I just kind of felt like, just kind of one of those days for them, and, that doesn't happen very often, so, we still got a lot to work on, a lot to focus on, and a lot of details, and, there's plenty to do on our end.
And we'll see how they'll be able to respond. I'm not sure how much better you play after that score. Thank you, Coach, of course, for coming on. Coming up on the Gridiron Report, your Players of the Week, Alyssa's Liberty League update, and the 4th and Goal debate. So stick around and make sure you follow us on social media for a behind-the-scenes look. Every week you can see us on the board there. The Gridiron Report. We'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching the Gridiron Report. We just had Coach Swanstrom in studio. Everyone on the sideline goes week by week, and they don't like getting ahead of themselves, but maybe we can. Cortica, of course, will be played at MetLife Stadium in an attempt to break the D3 single game attendance record, and our very own Steve Durr got to take a closer look at how that's going so far.
Thanks, Matthias. I'm Steve Durr, reporting for the Gridiron Report here at Jim Butterfield Stadium. The 61st edition of the Cortica Jug has broken the ticket sales record at 39,000 tickets, and it could be way more. Tickets for the game are still on sale online at corticajug.com. The game is scheduled for November 16th at MetLife Stadium, and it broke the previous record of 37,000 tickets sold from a 2017 Tommy Johnny game at Target Field between St. Thomas and St. John's of Minnesota. Ithaca is on a 2-game win streak in the Cortica Jug, winning last year's matchup by a score of 24-21. And the all-time series also favors Ithaca at a 36-24 in favor of the Bombers. From the Gridiron Report, I'm Steve
Thank you
Durr.
to Steve for that. Now taking a look at the Liberty League. It was the first week with conference matchups. Alyssa, what happened in those games?
Thanks, Matthias. I'm Liberty League analyst Alyssa Spady. This weekend marked the first weekend of Liberty League play, let's take a look at how our teams did. Starting off with RPI, they are hot. Now on a 3-game winning streak after their blowout against Rochester 38-0, and they took their home field advantage to heart as they picked up 24 points in just the second quarter alone. The Engineers held Rochester just 210 yards on offense, and junior quarterback George Marianopoulos had 4 touchdowns. RPI improves to 1-0 in conference, 4-1 overall. Rochester remains winless. The Bombers handled themselves well against St. Lawrence. They won 59-20, marking their 24th straight win against St. Lawrence, led by the amazing performance of senior wide receiver Will Gladney, who had 3 touchdowns. The Bombers looked like a well-oiled machine playing to their strengths and not letting St. Lawrence's strong defensive pressure get the best of them. And for our last game of the day yesterday, it came down between the battle of the undefeateds in Hobart and Union. Union seemed to have no problem with Hobart as they won 23-7. Senior linebacker Evan Gillen gave Union the juice on the defensive end. He had 6 solo tackles and 2 interceptions on the night. And now taking a quick look to next week and what you can expect from across the conference. RPI and Hobart start us off. It was a closely contested game last year when these two met, with RPI eventually taking the win. It will be a defensive matchup, with both hoping that their defensive pressure will crack the offense first. Undefeated Union takes on winless Rochester next. Rochester will need to really show what they can do on the offensive side and match that intensity with some solid defense if they want to hand Union their first loss. And finally, coming off their bye week, Buffalo State will face off against your Ithaca Bombers. Buffalo State's Gino Bonagura will look to wreak havoc on the defensive side, hoping to give the Bombers offense a tough day. And let's wrap up things with your Week 6 Liberty League Players of the Week. On the defensive side, senior linebacker Evan Gillen from Union had 6 solo tackles, a sack, and 2 interceptions. And on the offensive side, the junior quarterback whose hometown, Slingerland, New York, perfectly describes his game against Rochester, George Marianopoulos. He was 67% on the day with 242 yards and 4 touchdowns. Coming up next, Matthias Wildman and I sit down with Ithaca Players of the Week, Will Gladney and Kevin Schock, to talk about yesterday's win. Don't forget to follow us on social media at The Gridiron Report on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Don't go anywhere. The Gridiron Report will be right back.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Report, everyone, your one-stop shop for all things Bombers football. The way they're playing, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's meet some of the players that helped move them to 4-0. On the far side, making his Gridiron debut, is the author for one of the 4 interceptions. He led the team in tackles and played lockdown D all game long, cornerback Kevin Schock. And then right next to me, I'm starting to run out of ways to describe what he does week in and week out. He's a household name for Bombers fans. He's an All-American, wide receiver Will Gladney. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kevin, we can start with you. The defense struggled a little bit in the St. John Fisher game, and then you guys come out lights out in the St. Lawrence game. What was the adjustment you made?
Well, they definitely played different styles of offense, so I think this week we knew they were going to come out in a lot of empty and 10 personnel, so like we were expecting them to air it out, as Coach said. We knew the quarterback was going to throw it upwards of like 30 times a game. I think he threw it 36, but and they took him out like midway through the third quarter because we were doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But last week we did a pretty good job coming out of the gate, but we kind of let up towards the end of the second quarter and the beginning of the third, and that was really a big focus of our team this week, to just be resilient and keep pushing forward and just take it one play at a time, and I think we definitely did our job this week.
Well, how did you work in practice this past week to help to dismantle St. Lawrence's defense so quickly?
I think it's just the way we rep things. Like every day we rep one-on-one routes and stuff like that, and it's shown in the games with all our receiving core. So.
And Kevin, you were guarding Andrew Murphy for part of the game. You were really just alternating between a couple people, whoever was closest to you. Mm-hmm. Murphy came in with over 300 yards on the season. They had a big passing attack. You faced some dangerous receivers just the whole thing, and you really shut them down. What did you guys do, the DBs in general?
I think the DBs we always try to come in with a pretty significant confidence and always try to do the utmost when watching film and analyzing all the players' habits and route concepts. We're definitely aware of what they're going to come at us with. I mean, I know that I got an interception at practice this week on the play that I got an interception in the game this week. And I think, that goes to show just how much preparation we put forward as a defense. And I mean, for another player, Mikey Rooms, he got that 80-yard pick six on that stick route, which we practiced all week. So, yeah, practice pays.
I guess so, yeah.
Will, you've already had an amazing career, and you continued that this weekend with 8 catches, which makes you the first player in Ithaca history to reach 200 career receptions. How does that make you feel?
Feels great, but my boy Vito's he's right there about to catch me. So I don't know, it's a friendly little challenge we have. So who's gonna get the most catches before they graduate? So it feels pretty good.
You guys make like bets before the game, who's gonna get more catches?
I want to say before the game, a night before, a couple nights before, we talk a little smack, but it's all love. He'll get it though.
All right, Kevin, so this was your first interception in a Bombers uniform. You talked about how you made the interception in practice on the play, so obviously you had some practice before, but just walk me through what you saw before the play, your mindset, ripping the ball out of the receiver's hands, and just what you were feeling after.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of had an idea because of the down and distance, and I knew exactly what my responsibility was on the play. I knew I had inside safety help, so I could do my darnest to undercut the ball and try and take it from him. And you know, I shot my shot, and luckily it paid off.
So what was the mindset just after ripping that ball out? Because I mean, I've never played football, but I can imagine first career interception. It's pretty special.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. It kind of felt like, you know, after I got the interception, I was definitely hyped up for a couple of seconds, but I ran back to the sideline. It was kind of a let's get back to business type thing because, you know, there was only more snaps coming. So. Yeah.
And Will, how do you remain focused this next week in practice against a significantly weaker team in Buffalo State?
I see the opposite. I feel like they have a lot of talent on that team, and we just take it week by week. And I've been preaching to the team, just respect every opponent. It doesn't matter who they are. It could be a modified team, high school. It doesn't matter who we play. Just take it week by week. Respect your opponents and go out there just like we would in a national championship game.
And I know I asked Coach Swanstrom this before, and he said he doesn't look at the rankings. Do you guys look at all? I mean.
Today was the first time I heard anything about it, but
Okay.
I think it might serve as a slight motivator for us, but I think more than anything else, we just want to play as a team. And I mean, team is kind of a lucid term, but it's not just about guys who want to play football, it's about guys who want to play football together and play football for each other, and I think we're working towards that every single week.
I think they're doing a good job of that, especially because they're 4-0. That's going to do it for the Gridiron Reporter Players of the Week. Will Gladney and Kevin Schock leading the charge for their units. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on and keep up the great work. As always, follow us on social media for some great content. You see Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit up all of them. Coming up, we're going to wrap up the 4th and goal debate. So make sure you stick around. The Gridiron Report will be right back. Welcome back to the Gridiron Report. I'm joined by our analysts for the season, Alex Hessig, Jackson Lawrence, and Brandon Miller. Gentlemen, let's just get right into it. Last week was close. This one, not so much. Were you surprised to see that it was so close? Jackson, start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to say it was kind of a pleasant surprise for me. I knew St. John Fisher coming back last week it might have been a little tough for the secondary, but I was really impressed with them. 4 interceptions in the first half on Groshot, who threw 5 in the first 4 games. He had 1,260 passing yards coming in, so I was really impressed with the secondary.
Brandon, what about you?
You know, I'm not really surprised by the fact that they came out and put up so many points. We know the offense is good, and this was just a bounce-back game for this team after a game against St. John Fisher that they kind of came out and were a little bit slow in the second half. So it's a bounce-back. They come out, they put up a bunch of points, and I believe 56 of them were unanswered, so not surprised at all.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I got to agree with Brennan here. Just after the performance last week in the second half, I figured we'd see a better performance. I didn't know if I expected this big of a performance, but it was good for them to get back in another win, but in more convincing fashion.
Yeah, and all these guys are gamers. They're going to come out and they're going to try their hardest every single time. So you go into the second half against St. John Fisher, you don't put up a bunch of points like you did in the first half, but then you say, you know what can we improve on? What can we go back? What can we take a look at? And what can we do better? And then they come out and show that against St. Lawrence. So not only did they look really good in that game, but they kept it going throughout. It wasn't just the first half, and it wasn't just the second half. They went and they took a look at what they needed to do. They improved, and they showed that they're improving not only in practices, but in games as well.
I think the one thing you have to look at, Brennan, was how well these teams really matched up. St. Lawrence coming in as really a passing team instead of a running team, I thought. And I think just the way that they were handled, the secondary was able to handle those receivers in the middle and also on the outside short flats were really impressive. And I don't think I was really expecting that, but I think it was a nice surprise.
I mean, that defense has been solid, though. We had some question marks in the beginning there. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But, you know, the defense has gotten better and better. The improvement is there on all sides of the ball.
Let's just go right to the specific groups. For Ithaca, obviously, the team itself is dangerous, offense, defense, special teams. But what specific group makes them as dangerous as they are, Brendan?
I just said it. The defensive backs, they are very, very good. They've been outstanding this year. They have 9 interceptions in 4 games. So when you look at that defensive backfield, I really don't see any kind of weakness. I mean, Kyrie Brown's got 2, and I'm going to cheat a little bit and put Nick Garone in there as well as a member of the defensive backfield. He's got 3 picks to his name to go along with that. But to see a team, especially when, you know, the Liberty League is not a very strong passing league. Only 2 teams actually average above 230 yards, and one of them's Ithaca, and that's going to be a little difficult to play against yourself. The other one's St. Lawrence. So the only real test through the air that this defensive backfield was going to have, they not only succeeded, but they excelled with the 4 interceptions.
What about you, Alex?
Well, Brendan, you kind of said it yourself there. There's not a lot of teams in the Liberty League that are good throwing the football. And the thing that this team does best is put points up. So I think it has to be the quarterback room that's the most impressive part of this team. Anytime you can start an All-American and your backup is a 2-year starter, no one else can really compete with that in this league.
And it's working out for them pretty well. Jackson, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you, Brennan, there. I'm glad you mentioned the 3 interceptions by Garone. I think it's got to be offensively. You got a huge trio of receivers with Anderson, Gladney, and Vito, and that's something that's really going to come in handy for them down the stretch. It's going to be really hard for other teams to double a player like Gladney going one-on-one down the sideline. And now that you have Anderson and Vito getting lots of catches, you're going to have to force those players to go one-on-one down the sideline, and those one-on-one deep balls are tough for other secondaries.
Well, you know, the only thing I'm going to have to say about that is that at the beginning of the season, you know that those guys are going to come in and that they're going to succeed. I mean, Will Gladney's an All-American wide receiver, so you can kind of game plan for that if you're an opposing team. But when you take a look at that defensive backfield, they don't have a lot of guys with experience. And when you take a look at what they have done this season compared to what they did last season, it's just through the roof better.
Yeah, it's been impressive, but you have to remember, too, they're getting up huge leads in these games early. It makes the other team throw the football more. They're going to be taking more chances, and they're going to get more interceptions just because of that.
And we talked about it last week also. The reason why St. John Fisher came back, I think, was because of the defense. You put up 38 points in the first half and then nothing to show for that. But the way that, you know, they came back into the last game, St. John Fisher is a really good passing team, and I think that's something that can really hurt them. So offensively, when you go with Germanario and you have that 3-set receiving core in the flats, it's going to be tough to stop anything for first downs.
All right, gentlemen, last question. We're seeing a number 10 ranking now. That is the highest for the Bombers in a very long time, the highest it's been since any of us have been on this campus. How high are they going to climb? How high can they get, Alex?
I think it's all dependent on teams ahead of them in the poll right now. They don't really play the level of opponent that a voter would see and say, you know what, that's a great win. I'm going to move them up this week just based on that win pretty much for the rest of the season. I think it's fully dependent on the teams ahead of them. If they lose and Ithaca takes care of business like I think they should the rest of the way, then they'll move up.
Brendan and Jackson, really quick.
I think this is going to be the toughest part of the season, obviously, for the Bombers. 4 of their next 6 games are against teams that either received votes or have been in the top 25 so far this season. So it's going to be hit or miss. They can either move up big or they can drop down.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they're going to have a good season, but there's 3 teams, Mary Hardin Baylor, Wisconsin Whitewater, and Mount Union. They're always at the top. I don't see why they don't get it again this year.
All right, gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week on the Gridiron Report. Thank you to Coach Swanstrom, Will Gladney, and Kevin Schock for all stopping by to talk Bombers football. Make sure you're tuning in next week, same time, same channel. We'll be breaking down everything from the Liberty League home opener as the 10th-ranked Bombers travel home to take on Buffalo State Bengals. As always, roll Bombers.